So I think everyone is under the impression that Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII is a very angry protagonist.
Cover your ears.
Huh? Oh, blast charge? Oh wait, hold on. Alright, hold. Alright, go for it! Make it happen!
I'm so sorry. Please let me in.
Well, I guess we were all wrong. Maybe not.
I can save her!
Now that's comedy.
Now Final Fantasy is an interesting franchise for me, mostly because I never cared about it growing up, but weeaboo RamZaes is desperately trying to go backwards into the series. And I feel I have to mention that yes, 15 was my first Final Fantasy, and I did really enjoy it. I mean, I liked it enough to want to play the others, and if you're wondering, yes, I did do a video on FF14 with a free trial making an Ace Attorney character, but of course videos on Ace Attorney don't get any views, so it's private now, which then means the next one is Final Fantasy 13. And I was very well aware of the stigma surrounding this game, in that, oh boy, a lot of people really despise it. The game came out in 2009, and the general gist is that it's not what people wanted. The characters were unlikable, it had weird pacing, and so many narrow hallways. Fans were used to a certain style and quality with FF games, which is why it wasn't really what they wanted. Plus there were plans to make it into a big universe thing with so many games, it was not off to a great start. However, since I'm working backwards, I had honestly no expectations going into this, and I want to stress that when games come out, a lot of fan perception can influence how you feel on said game. Well, playing this for the first time almost 10 years later, well, let's just say, I didn't really hate it. Shocking, I know. Also disclaimer, I did play this on PC, hence the nicer looking visuals, and also this footage was from a few years ago, which is why I might be a bit more noob in how the gameplay is on screen. It's hard jumping from books to JRPGs. So the world of FF13 is quite interesting. You have these godlike creatures called the Foul Sea, who are lazy bums, meaning they brand humans with tattoos giving them work to do. And these humans are called L'Cie. Now the work they have to do is a goal called a focus, and if they complete it, they get to turn into crystal. Kinda a bad deal, but if they don't do it quickly or never work out what the goal is, they turn into zombie monsters. Yeah, this world kinda sucks for humans, eh? And even then, most of the humans live on this cocoon place which floats in the sky. As below is Grand Pulse, a wild area with many horrible creatures. Now since humans are kinda scared of the whole tattoo thing, anyone who is feared to have a focus or come in contact with people who have, get banished down below in a purge caused by the government called Sanctum. And this is where the game starts off, with Lightning McQueen, an ex-soldier who is looking for her captive sister. Along the way she meets Saz, a father looking for his son in this mess. Also, yes, he's got a chocobo in his hair. Now Lightning, well, she is very, aggressive, and tries to take down the Sanctum on the train, transporting humans to be banished. Wait, no, Lightning, do you even know how that works? Now the Sanctum stop the train, and we get ready to fight a giant scorpion mech. So this is where the combat tutorial comes in, and I'll get to that later when we have a bigger party. But the two defeat the mech and continue on. Now the game jumps around in this chaotic town, showing a resistance force led by a punchy boy called Snow. I mean, I think he likes the snow since he's got a beanie. Gee, I sure hope that ain't the dumbest sounding name in this game. But here is where you kinda notice a big problem with this game. It's very linear. Yeah, wow, 2009 internet reviews were right. With Snow and his buddies, you literally walk down a straight line, fight, then repeat, with some cutscenes sprinkled in. Anyway, they reach some hostages and free them, but the civilians are like, no, we want to help as well.
You sure?
Yeah. Moms are tough.
However, it seems like in this world, moms ain't tough, as she goes tumbling down. So who are these two? Well, this is her son, and his name is... drumroll please, Whiny Crybaby. I mean Hope, yeah. Well, okay, to be fair, the kid is like 14 years old, his mother just died in front of him, and the man who could have saved her probably doesn't wash his beanie. And so throughout the game, a lot of his character is just... revenge! And traveling with him is this Aussie girl.
First impression of Snow?
all talk.
There is a lot to unpack with her, but that's for the late game to explain. For now, her personality is that of a clumsy Dumbo, and she convinces Hope to follow Snow, who is also heading to where Lightning is going because, well, her sister, Sarah, is his fiancée. Yeah, I kind of forgot to mention that. Seems kind of important. And these are pretty much the main cast of the game. What a wonderful bunch. And the thing FF13 does quite a lot is constantly switching up your party members. You won't have them at all times, and it can get a bit annoying, as just when you get used to them the story splits the group up and you gotta focus on a new dynamic. It's even worse since you can't change who you control or what moves the AI do in battle, which can be very frustrating. So eventually the gang all reach the Falsey Vestige where Sarah is held. Then after some zombie battles they reach her, and it's such a joyous occasion till she turns into crystal. So yeah, turns out her focus was to tell others to save Cocoon, and yeah, she did that, meaning she completed her goal and is now crystallized. Kind of a ripoff, honestly. Lightning and Snow are pissed, one more than the other,
I have to wait.
and storm into the center to actually confront the god Falsey who did all this. So yeah, we're fighting a god within like 2 hours of the game starting. But of course, we lose in the story cutscene, where all the members get grabbed and shown a vision before everyone plunges down together. So since this is like the one time you get all the party members together, I guess I'll talk about the gameplay. And frankly, it's very unique, at least to me. It's turn-based but more active, as in the enemies don't wait around for you to pick your move. You have this active time bar, and when it fills up you get to attack in a row depending on how many bars you unlock. Now you can pick which attacks to queue up or auto attack. Yes, the game can just play itself. In the early game it can be quite useful, but trust me, do not rely on this, as the bosses in the late game will need you to actually pick attacks to counter them properly, as I learnt the hard way. The other major mechanic is the paradigm shift. Paradigm? So as you go through the game, you unlock classes for the characters, things like attack, tank, healer, and so on. Now you can set up these sort of decks where you say, okay, I want you to be commando, you sentinel, you medic, etc. Then another deck for other combinations. So in battle you'll want to shift between them, i.e. change classes on the fly to use different abilities. It's such a unique style of JRPG battle, as the moves are locked to the classes which you can change on the go. The major planning is picking which combination of roles you want on the decks, and yes, it does take some time getting used to it. Now a big reason you'll want to do this is the bar on the top right. This fills up the more consecutive attacks performed, with different roles doing it better than others, and when you max it out, you pretty much stagger the enemy, breaking their so-called barrier to then do massive damage. So the main idea is to get the bar full with mainly a combination of Ravager and Commando attacks, then swap to high damage paradigms, all the while healing and defending when the enemy winds up for a big hit. Then to level up you have the Crystarium, which is like a very linear skill tree. You use the points on roles you want to level up, but do note some characters are better at some roles than others, which kinda makes the whole split cast thing worse, because you might be stuck with a bad healer for a while just because the story said so. Then yeah, that's the general gist of the combat, and looking at the footage, man does it at least look good. I believe this was the time Square Enix were trying to reinvigorate the turn-based combat system, which might be why FF15 is an action game. They wanted to make traditional turn-based combat look more fast-paced, and yeah, I can see that. Now to get to the combat, it's not random encounters as you can see the enemies. However, since the hallways are so narrow, well, you can't really avoid them, which then loops back to a criticism of the game and how it's a hallway simulator. The amusing thing though is that the game actually does open up later on, but for most people that was not soon enough. Anyway, continuing on, now the group has some infighting, as Snow still believes they can save Sarah from the crystal, even though no one has managed to escape from that fate, and Lightning is incredibly against this, as even when they find her frozen body, Lightning, well...
Does she look protected to you?
I can save her!
She's a very grumpy protagonist, eh? Now while they bicker, the Sanctum finds them, causing the others to flee except for Snow, and while he's about to be captured, he summons a persona. No, that's really what happens. Guess I can tick that off the JRPG checklist. So these are summons, and each character has to battle them in times of need, and after winning through some weird condition, they can use them in battles. I honestly feel like these are really an afterthought, or the director just played Persona 4 before this game. Trust me, you'll see in his other ones, he really likes to let his work be heavily influenced by what's trendy during that time. But regardless, Snow gets captured and meets this other Aussie named Fang. Now to the others, they are forced to split up, with Saz going with Vanille, that clumsy girl, and Lightning with Hope. It's kinda amusing, you would think this is very bad, pairing Revenge Boy with an angry girl like her, but no, she kinda dissuades Hope since, you know, she doesn't want to have a dead brother-in-law. As for Saz and Vanille, well, his kid was actually captured by the Sanctum since he had a focus, which was an ability to track others down. The tattoo kinda gives you more power of some sort, and Vanille reveals to the audience that through her actions, she might have caused this kid to get that focus, meaning that's something she should really tell Saz, but she doesn't, because you know, JRPG plots. Now at this point, with all the flashbacks to the lovey-dovey Snow and Sarah, I hope you can see that there is obviously more to these characters than the angsty nature the opening shows you, and I think the reason why I feel a lot of people hated this cast is the game's pacing. The story starts out all sad and emotional with angry characters, rightfully so at their fate placed on them by the gods, but the game starts really heavy with this. There are no moments to breathe, to let the characters unwind and express other emotions, not at least till the mid-game. Now since I'm known for randomly linking games together, I want to say, and I don't think anyone said this before, but I feel that this game has so much in common with Tales of Berseria, which is one of my favourite games. You have a group of angry misfits on the run from the law, given superpowers by some gods. The thing is though, the game was paced really well, starting with a calm opening, getting to know one side of Velvet, before the big twist and change showing her other side. As in, when you go through the game, you know deep down, there's still that other side to her personality, she isn't all angst. However, with this game, you don't really get that for most of the characters, not till the flashbacks around the mid-game. It becomes hard for fans to like these characters from the get-go, and I mean the linear hallway gameplay ain't doing it no favors. Now before I get to the other aspects of the game, I want to briefly summarize the spoiler bits of the story. It won't be in depth, but I feel like I have to talk about it if I want to cover the other games to see where the story goes. So eventually you learn that Fang and Vanille both are from Grand Pulse. Yeah, put the Aussies down on the hostile world, eh? They were given focuses but immediately turned into crystal for some reason. And just before the start of the game, they awoke from their crystal state and unknowingly set off the game's chain of events, including giving Saz and Lightning's families focuses. Also, Hope eventually learns that revenge ain't the answer, and Snow also asks forgiveness from him and his dad, who they meet up with later. Saz and Vanille, however, make it to where his son is, but it was a trap by the Sanctum, and his son turns into a crystal since his focus was to find his dad as a lessee. Yeah, these goals are weirdly specific. Saz, however, doesn't take revenge when the Sanctum reveals that Vanille caused all this, and the two get captured. Here, Vanille says that she and Fang both fought Sanctum back in the day, and the reason she acts oblivious is to avoid her responsibility as a lessee, i.e. if she acts dumb, there's no way she can work out what her focus is. The two then break out and meet up with the others, and head to fight the leader of the Sanctum, a Pope. Yeah, it's a JRPG, of course it's a Pope. However, he ain't just a normal dude, and reveals himself to be a fal'Cie called Barthandelus. He tells them that their group focus that they got with the first boss is to destroy Orphan, the fal'Cie which is keeping the cocoon floating in space, away from the monsters on Grand Pulse. The group counter this by remembering Sarah's words before her crystal time, that she said to save Cocoon, not destroy it by letting it fall out of the sky. Then through some anime hijinks, the group try and find a way to remove their focus, and so head through a portal down to Grand Pulse, which is now where the game actually opens up with no more linearity, with less hallways and a lot of side quests. They wander around, including having some character moments where Vanille finally owns up to her mistakes, and just when they make it to Fang in her abandoned hometown, old Pope Man comes in and is like, having fun on your holiday? Oh, by the way, I'm gonna start a civil war by resigning, hiring some bozo, then telling my followers who don't like him it was all the Orphan fal'Cie's fault, and they will destroy it for me. Oh yeah, and here's a ship back up, and if you just want to try and stop me, okay? Well, thanks for the ship. But before that, we also learned that Fang could turn into this beast called Ragnarok that almost destroyed Cocoon back in the day. So during that fight, she was put to sleep with Vanille by the fal'Cie. Old Pope Boy then kidnapped them onto Cocoon. Eventually, the group make it back and head to Orphan where Pope Boy taunts with them to turn into Ragnarok. Come on, you know you want to. And after a boss battle, he then combines with Orphan himself and tries to force Vanille to turn into Ragnarok. Fang, however, volunteers instead, but once again, the full transformation fails. Now, in kinda a weird twist, the group say that if they have the power to destroy Cocoon, they also have the power to save it, which is why they destroy Orphan. So, like, hello guys, do you realize it's gonna fall down now? And so it does. But don't worry, Vanille and Fang both fuse into Ragnarok finally, and create a giant crystal tree to hold up the giant ball. The gang then turn into crystal due to completing their focus, but then get freed somehow. This also includes the others who are in crystals, and it's now a lovey-dovey happy ending. So yeah, quite an interesting way to end it. I mean, I love how it's all about defying your fate, and those pesky fal'Cie who just want to keep meddling with humans, treating them like toys. Although to be fair, if it wasn't for Fang and Vanille, no one would have survived. I hope you understand that, Lightning. Although I do feel the ending is sorta abrupt in a way, as in this world has so much to offer. Like most JRPGs would take more time exploring all the things about the world, but that was the plan, as FF13 was to have numerous sequels, and we'll get to those soon. Now to other things, and firstly, I love this game's setting. I think my favorite kind of worlds in video games are sci-fi, but not too sci-fi, having some reality to them. A bit Xenoblade Chronicles 2 does amazingly well in the late game. FF13 is fantasy based, but has mechs and sci-fi ideas which I love. Thus the whole concept of a cocoon and fal'Cie is so interesting, which was then backed up by an amazing engine. Reminder, this game came out on the PS3 in 2009. You want to know how other games look like at the time? And to this day it still looks phenomenal. I mean, the pre-rendered cutscenes naturally look stunning, but even the in-engine stuff looks great, at least on PC. The character designs themselves are great, not too overly anime, but more realistic in some aspects. Also, Lightning's design is 10 out of 10, holy moly. I need to get this out of my system, okay? Anyway, to the music. Now, I don't know the overall consensus for it, but there is a lot of good and a lot of bad with the sound. Firstly, the tracks are great when they're in the background with the worlds. However, I don't think they fit the story. What I mean is that the music they pick to play during the scenes can be very off-putting. It doesn't really match what's going on in the cutscene. And there's the fact that you can't lower the music at all, so it's just gonna blare at you, jarring your ears. Please make it stop. Now the voice acting, well, one thing I love about Square Enix is that they at least know the power of having dubs in your game. You hear that, Sega? But Square goes a step further and actually reanimates cutscenes to have the lip flaps match the English dub. Really great stuff, but the voice direction for this game can be kinda weird, as it feels like the VAs were told to match the Japanese dialogue as best as possible. I mean, you know, in Japanese games they make weird anime noises. Well, here's how that sounds in English. I swear this ain't a hentai game. Also, one criticism I do agree heavily with is how FF13 details its world. For a big setting, it kinda is crazy that a lot of this is told through the pause menu. As every story beat, the database updates and you can read about the characters and the world. I personally don't like this method of storytelling. I mean, at least having some NPCs to talk to in the hallways would have helped. And there are some, but you can't really interact with them at all. It just feels a bit disconnected. So yeah, that's pretty much Final Fantasy XIII. It was very interesting checking this game out years after that initial anger. No, I don't hate it. I really love the world they set up, the story of the humans defying their fates, the characters after the ending, and the gameplay was really unique. It's just kinda bogged down with very repetitive game design in the world, and the story's pacing leaves a lot to be desired. It's like they set up something really good, but missed a few things with the execution. But yes, I do recommend this game because, you see, it wasn't the end of the journey for Lightning and crew, as with a shock twist. The sequel is FF26. I mean, 13 too. Yeah, what's with these names, eh? So as you'll see, a lot of things brought up in this game, well, are addressed in very interesting ways in the sequel. So make sure you subscribe, as next, we will take a look at the time Square Enix made the bold move to remove a waifu from the game.
Trojan, RamZaes, Magnum, Sheik!